Hey y'all, it's your girly man Ramawi Doster with another episode of my so-called disabled life. And can I just say, what in the world is going on with our government in the United States, but also like the governments around the world with taking people's rights away and like telling certain people that they're not human enough for certain rights like housing and healthcare and food. And it's like, wow, who gave y'all the right to say who deserves things and who doesn't? It's kind of wild. And so I'm very not only introspective about it, but also like, okay, how do I step in to help folks out with certain things? Or how do I be a better ally? Or even more so, how do I hold these folks accountable to let them know that, like, guess what? We're not going anywhere. We're not going to take no for an answer. And you don't get to decide who's human and who isn't. Wild concept, right? Um, in any event, I am so happy to bring my next guest on. We have been Instagram friends for a little while and we kept chatting and it was so cool and so fun. And I can't wait to introduce you to my next guest. So Corin Parsons is an awesome individual and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So
Hi.
hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am
Great to be
doing
here.
great today. How are you
Fantastic.
doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
So we're gonna just jump right in. And I'm going to ask, who is Corinne and why do you do what you do?
Oh, that is a big question. And it's a hard question to answer without confusing, identity with like what it is you do to survive capitalism. I uh It seems like the shortest answer these days is that I'm a middle-aged white man, and that's wild to think about because that's not where I started out, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out how I got here and where to go. So I will just give a little bit of kind of my background, I guess, and because I want to locate myself socially, geographically, for your listeners. Um, so I grew up in the States in Boulder, Colorado. I currently live in Vancouver, Canada, which is and always will be the land of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I came up here in a bit of an odd way. Growing up, my special interest was government. I elected politics. I officially had drunk the Kool-Aid. If you wanted to make change, you did so at the ballot box. That's what I wanted to do. And so after undergrad, I was working in elected politics in Massachusetts, and that's when I met my then husband, who was undocumented in the States. And the law was, and I think still is, such that if somebody quote unquote enters without inspection, so if somebody walks across the border and spends more than a year undocumented in the US, then they cannot adjust their status, even if they're married to a US citizen. So you have to leave the country, and there's a 10-year bar on reentry. You can apply for a waiver to that bar, and that requires tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds and hundreds of pages of documentation, and then some bureaucrat in some office in our case, Lima, Peru, because he was from Brazil, um, would then decide whether or not we got to live together in the same country. So I didn't love that, and we started looking for other options. And I had a Fulbright fellowship in Brazil, so I went to Brazil. We left the U.S., went to Brazil, and then came up here for me to do my graduate degree in Canada. And he was able to come with me, and then I've just been here ever since, and still still doing my degree all these years later. Um, so we're no longer married. A lot of things have happened, and also nothing has happened, which is often the way with disability stuff. Time starts to do weird things. But I'm still here. I'm still doing that, and I I look forward to someday being a recovering academic and someday I guess, re-earning what I would say that if you had asked me a year or 2 years ago, I would say that I'm a disability advocate. I've had to kind of put some of that work aside and just finish up uh, my degree and move on, find out what's next. So hopefully I'll get to do more of that work in the near future as well.
Right. And so you were here first, and I'm in New York, y'all. Y'all know that. So you were here in the US first, and then you went over to Canada. And so what was your experience like being in the US and then shifting over to Canada and then still living in Canada while you have your disabilities?
Oh boy. Yeah, there's a lot there. So I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a genetic connective tissue disorder. I didn't know that's what was going on with me. Like it's one of those things that you sort of in retrospect you put all these pieces together and realize um, that something was up. But at the time, I didn't know that at the time. Health wise, I was doing fairly well. Um, so I don't have a ton of experience with the, the the U.S. healthcare system, um, and it's man, it's been heartbreaking seeing all the conversations right now around folks wanting to leave the U.S., figuring out what that might look like if that's possible, and knowing that for disabled folks, um, you don't have the same international mobility. And if my health status was then what it is now, Canada probably wouldn't have been in the cards. But because I didn't know what was going on with my health and I was doing pretty well, that really wasn't a consideration. I was pretty naive about the immigration side of things, even though I had a good sense of how that all worked in the States. Um, and at the time it was 2009. Obama had just been elected, and everyone was telling me like, don't leave. It's gonna get better. It's gonna we're gonna have comprehensive immigration reform. Things are gonna get better. And I remember looking around, just going, the vibes are off. Like, I, I'm not sure that that's longer term what's gonna happen, and it's been devastating to I wanted to be wrong about that. I really did. Um, so yeah, we coming up to Canada, we actually we hit every green light, which also is something that I was quite naive about how all that worked, and again in retrospect, see how privilege operated to get us up here. But Yeah, and since then it's funny. There was an SNL skit that I watched a number of years ago that said something about how everything in Canada is just like 20% different, and that's so true. So in some ways, I'm now a dual citizen. Not that countries and borders are real and citizenship actually is anything, because I really don't think that it ought to be. But I am up here for the foreseeable future, for that reason. And sometimes I still feel, uh, sometimes I still don't know what's going on. And usually it's because things are just slightly different. Um, so yeah, it's been an adventure, but I've been up here for, gosh, 16 years at this point. So I think yeah.
No, I feel like a lot of folks, especially like in chronic illness land, oftentimes when you have any kind of chronic illness, folks are like, we don't want to attach it to disability, even if it's doing things to disable your body further. And even if you're like seeing specialists and using mobility devices and taking medications, it's like, don't use the D word. So I guess that's
Absolutely, yeah.
universal everywhere. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't know that that's what I was doing, because I did what I think a lot of folks, even when folks uh, see the value, and there is so much value in embracing disability as an identity and the disability community, and disabled ways of like being and knowing. I didn't feel like I had the right to do that for a long time too. And I think there are a lot of folks in that camp. I have a newly disabled friend who was telling me that he feels like an imposter, and I was like, that is a feature, not a bug. Like we all feel like imposter. I don't know who the perfect disabled person is out there who like actually feels like they own that identity. But most of us, I think, don't, or move in and out of feeling like we belong, I guess, as it were. And in part because, what disability actually, it's defined so many different ways in so many different contexts. And so it kind of keeps us uh, a little off balance sometimes.
No, I absolutely feel the same way. And even after, like, my lupus has been so aggressive all these years, and even after it caused me to be paralyzed from the neck down and I was using a wheelchair, I still didn't call myself disabled. And I didn't start calling myself disabled until I became a double amputee, mostly because of how other people were interacting with me and how they saw me. And then I realized, oh snap, I must got some like internal ableism. Oh snap, what's going on? Like levels and layers. And it definitely
Absolutely.
came from a lot of the people I was hanging out with and them influencing me. And once I started hanging out with more disabled folks, I was like, oh, wow, I can actually say this and do this, not have that imposter syndrome, get the supports that I need. And that also opened up even more dumpster fire activity. But like that's so speaking of being an amputee, you've also joined the amputee land. And I remember the
Yeah.
long conversation we had about it. And I was so grateful that you reached out to me and glad that I helped you along your journey. So what's that been like becoming and there are different, like I think everyone thinks as soon as you become an amputee, you're gonna be a Paralympian and doing all these cool things. Like, not all of us do that, but okay. But we're different. Like I'm an above knee and below knee, you're a double above knee. There are multiple different kinds of ways in which we become amputees and how then we navigate the amputee world and like with our prosthetics, with our phantom pain, with dealing with all the things. So what's that journey been like for you to make that decision and then live in this new body that you have?
I mean, first off, I was so grateful for your time, your expertise, your experiences, everything that you shared with me as I was making that decision. It was incredibly helpful, and speaking with you specifically because of your how you engage with disability, sort of what who you are and how you are in the disability community. That was incredibly helpful because, and we did talk a little bit about this at the time. Disability is so many different things, and how you come into disability and what kind of disability you have, and there's so many things that affect how people relate to their bodies and to disability as a category of social difference into the disability community. And coming into disability, as I did through chronic illness, is very, very different from coming into a new disability as an amputee, and sort of the ways that those communities operate, the expectations that people have, as you said, um, which has been absolutely fascinating, the sorts of resources that are or not available. And so I'm actually very, very grateful to have come into disability through chronic illness. It, I think, I think it radicalized me in a way that I hopefully would have eventually been radicalized as an amputee, but also looking around at the community, realized that I might not have been. Uh, so it helped me really embrace disability, as opposed to trying to disavow it or overcome it, or I feel victimized by it, whatever. Um, so I was able to, I think my relationship to being an amputee, it was different from a lot of folks, I think, for a number of reasons. But one of them is definitely that I had already kind of made peace with disability being just an ordinary life stage, right? Like that should we be so lucky. And people always say this, right? Like everyone becomes disabled eventually if you don't die. And I don't mean that in the sense of like, so you should be nice to disabled people, right? Which is often how it's said. But I mean it in terms of like, this is an ordinary life stage. It's gonna happen to you. This is just what it looks like for me. And how weird it is that we live in a culture in which a mortgage is considered more of an ordinary life stage than becoming disabled, when one of those is inevitable and the other one is an invention. Um, yeah, yeah. So I chose to be an amputee, which is a wild thing to say in some ways, in some contexts. And that's because I still have two conditions that really didn't play well together, which is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which I already mentioned, and then erythromelalgia, which is a neurovascular disorder that causes burning, pain, and itching and redness and swelling in your extremities. And for me, that had just gotten more and it had gotten worse and worse over the years. I've experienced both things my whole life. Um, and anything that I did to help with one made the other one worse and vice versa. And so I was at the point in that experience that I needed to make some choices. And to the surprise of my medical team and a lot of people, um, the cutting off my legs was not my last resort. Right, there were a lot of other things that would have um, impacted my quality of life more, I think. And so I I chose to cut off both of my legs, and I don't regret it. I think it was the right choice. I think uh, had I known what was on the other side of it, I would have done it probably 5, 8 years sooner. Saved myself a lot of uh, pain and exhaustion and other things like that. And I think one thing that you said to me when we were talking about this originally was like, I'm sorry you have to make this choice, but you're gonna be great at it, which I so appreciated, and it really helped me to orient myself towards it in a different way, and yeah, kind of embrace what comes next. So it has been uh, it's almost been a year at this point. August 29th is the 1 year anniversary, ampuversary. I've heard. And it's funny how, on the one hand, some of these things, like some things were just so easy, barely a transition at all. I had already been using wheelchair for 8 years by that point. A lot of stuff was super easy, kind of contiguous with my previous experience, and then other things continue to. Uh, I'm continuing to process other parts of it for sure. So it happens at different speeds and in different contexts, but it's people are always surprised when I say this is not at all my most disabling condition. Like this, and it's my quality of life is better on this side of that surgery, and uh, yeah, it's the first thing that people see and react to, but it's and it is I mean, a core part of my life now and for the future. But it's funny to the way that I experience my body is quite different from how how other people see and interact with me for sure.
Yes, I think that's one of the things that's the most jarring in the beginning, that people suddenly treat you and speak to you very differently the moment your legs are removed. And I'm coming up on 13 years,
My
and
gosh.
I still sometimes get the weirdest conversations, the weirdest questions, the weirdest interactions, and my response to them is always like, would you say that to someone with legs? Would you say that to someone without a visible disability? No? Then why are you saying it to me? Like what? Why? And it's all the time. And every time I leave my house, it's all the time. I was even talking to my therapist about this last week, and she was like, "Well, yes, they could be looking at your legs and they could be looking at your wheelchair, but also you radiate all this energy, so maybe they're just attracted to your vibe." And I'm like, "What? If they're attracted to my vibe, they need to come correct then, because I don't know what the heck they're doing." And so I wanted to ask, because I think some folks don't even believe that these things happen. And I'm just like, okay, all whatever. But what has been like the weirdest interaction that you've had with anyone since you've become it? Because I know you have some stories about weirdness. So please share.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah, it's fascinating. Like I said, I was previously a wheelchair user, and for some reason, like moving through the world in the exact same way, but without legs, people are super different about it. Um, I would say so. First off, I would say kids are a delight. Like kids, they they get it even when they don't get it, right? They ask kind of the right questions. Like being asked, and parents never want their kids to ask questions, right? They're just like, don't. And the number of time kids are like, that guy doesn't have legs. That guy doesn't have legs, right? They say it like 10 times and their parents just like, I'm not hearing this, right? Um, and so a couple of times I've been like, do you have questions? I always have time for, I mean, I usually have time for people even that I shouldn't, but like, I always have time for kiddos. Um, and one kid uh, was looking at me and goes, well, do you have a car? I have a car. Okay, but how do you drive it, right? Which is like, legit good question, right? Just putting things together, trying to figure out, how somebody does things differently or doesn't do things, or, right? Just, yeah. Then I had another interaction with a kiddo on the bus before I got my car adapted, um, and she, oh gosh, she was probably like 4. I don't know. She was a little thing, and she like had questions like, well, okay, but do you wear socks? Right? It's like, do you have knees? And I was like, I don't have knees. Well, okay, do I have knees? Like, we're all learning things today, right? And then questions like, okay, well then, but how did you get on the bus? Right? It's like, well, there's a ramp. Oh, well, what if the ramp doesn't work? And it's like that right there. You got it, right? And sometime I somehow, between that period of sort of trying to figure things out and how the world works and how different people exist in it, as children to being adults, and the wild things that adults do and say, potentially because they didn't, I guess, ask those questions perhaps, or didn't have exposure to disabled folks. Um, so I gotta say the weirdest interaction, hands down, and this is such a complicated topic for a lot of reasons, but the weirdest interaction was a man who sat sort of next to me on the bus, kind of like hemmed me in with how he was sitting, um, proceeded to make kind of sexual comments and then like touch my legs. And I was like, that's all of this is inappropriate. Like, that's, yeah. So that was a surprise. And most people don't do that. Most people are just kind of like, oh, you poor thing. Like, whatever I'm doing in the world becomes a group project, like, well, let me help you get in your car, let me help you reach that, whatever. And it's like, I'll ask for help if I need it, right? Like, I get my chair in and out of my car, I don't know how many times a day. And um, so yeah, no curiosity about like, well, how do you get your chair in and out of the car? It's just clearly you can't do this, right? Like, which is funny because I'm still trying to think, I'm still trying to find things that owing to being an amputee, I cannot find a way to do. And I'm having a hard time with it actually. Like um, things will take me longer. I will do them differently, usually in ways that are not socially appropriate, right? Which tends to be the thing that keeps you from like doing them in public, which is why people are like, clearly you can't. It's like, no, I can, but I would be, climbing on climbing on the shelves to reach whatever, right? Um, but yeah, I think people are consistently, the weirdest thing about being disabled is consistently other people and the assumptions that they make.
Yeah, no, that is so, so real. And oftentimes I'm like, and sometimes I don't even know how to respond. And I'm just like, I'm gonna just I'm gonna just sit here. I don't even know what words to say.
Totally. 3 hours later, I have a great comeback.
Exactly. It's always later when I'm not
It's
with you
always
anymore.
later. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. In the moment, I'm
Ugh.
just like,
Wow.
yeah.
No, that's so real. And I think that a lot of folks assume, one, they assume, especially in the US, that like as soon as if you're becoming more and more disabled with time, you'll get all the supports that you need. And then two, that you're either, like you said, you're either super inspiring or super
Hmm.
pitiful or a super Paralympian. Like there's no in between, there's no nuance, there's no like folks trying to like really treat us like a full human with a range
Hmm.
of experiences and emotions and all that. So has that been like navigating people being weird and not treating you the same way?
I mean, in the moment, like you said, it's mostly just kind of like I don't know what to do with that. Um, I think so. One of the things that, even though things are quite different in some ways as an amputee, like I do feel like I got a head start on a lot of this. And I think often about just how much it would be to kind of one day to the next be embodied in this way. I had, because it was an elective amputation in in scare quotes, but I had, it was a 2 year process. I had a lot of time to sort of wrap my head around that, and to honestly like look forward to it, right? Like to look forward to not experiencing the symptoms that I was experiencing, and to sort of, yeah, I was able to kind of set things up for myself in advance. So in some ways, it's it's been less jarring, I think, than it is for many other folks. I wish I was quicker. I wish that I knew what to say to people. Usually it's just something like, it's okay. I've got it. We're all good. Thanks so much, right? But it's tough because you do end up having to do a lot of that educational work when I mean, I recently realized that for a lot of folks, I might be the first amputee they've talked to. I might be, probably am for most folks, right? The first like bilateral above knee amputee they've ever met. Um, and so people don't, there's no pre-existing social script. There's no sort of basis of knowledge that folks are working from, which is fascinating because like you find out exactly what people think because they don't know what to say, so they just say whatever they're thinking. And um and like I said, I often have time for people I probably even shouldn't, and do some of that educational work that kind of no individual person should have to do, but it is just because disability, and some disabilities more than others, not every disability is viewed and approached in the same way, right? But like, um, the fact that disability in general is such a taboo thing, that disabled folks in general are both hypervisible and invisible, just means that people have a lot of wild assumptions, but not a lot of actual knowledge, and not a lot of competence around disability. So you end up sort of holding people's hands through that, which is tough. And yeah, in terms of like people expect you to yeah, either your life is over, or next stop is the Paralympics. That's definitely definitely a thing. People do assume that you're not only attempting to approximate able-bodiedness, but also, yes, that you will do something incredible, whatever. And I do para sports. I do rowing and tennis and racing, wheelchair racing. I'm very mediocre at all three. I literally like I do it just so that I have somewhere to go and have a coach to be like, okay, go, you know, go get your yayas out, run around the track, whatever. And so I don't know, like, yeah, I think I don't I want to say, but also don't want to say like, disabled folks are regular folks, because when I'm saying like that ordinary bit, it really isn't. Um, I don't want us to think about non-disability being the metric for what is ordinary, right? But disabled folks are ordinary disabled folks. Like it's um and yeah, people don't really um understand. And like to some extent, this is one of the ways in which I'm still kind of uh processing amputation, realizing that someday it's not going to, and it is already happening, right? That like transferring to my wheelchair without like, because I used to be able to stand to transfer, right? Or things like just realizing that the ways that I do things differently are at some point not going to be me strategizing beforehand, right? At some point it's just going to be, this is how things are done. So in some ways it's not ordinary for me yet. But in many other ways it is. So yeah.
No, I love that answer because that very much solidifies the thing that I keep trying to push people to think about when it comes to disabled folks. Like, we can be regular schmegular disabled people. We don't have to do anything extraordinary with our lives simply because we're marginalized. Like, we don't have to, like, take up arms and do all these things. Like, because some people just don't want to or can't, and that's not always their role. And I think that we forget that you can have whatever role it is that works for you, and that also includes being a disabled person who's just doing regular schmegular things. And it's like, why do I have to suddenly be a model minority and do all these really wild, extravagant things for you to like accept me as a person and to accept me into whatever spaces? And so I feel like that's very much um, like what you're talking about in that spectrum. And like, and you do the sports just so you can have some things to do, not because you're trying to like be a professional sports person. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's what you're saying makes me think about like, in a lot of ways, just like being regular schmegular as a disabled person is an act of resistance in our society, but like not for the reasons that people who are not disabled think, like um and it's yeah, it's interesting that there's so much resistance of expectations and really violent systems, et cetera, that come along with trying to live your life as a disabled person. And that part goes completely unperceived by many non-disabled people who, yeah, want you to go to the Paralympics or inspire them in some way. And it's like, no, you need to come over to this side, right, and see actually what it takes to get through your day, and not because necessarily anything related to your body mind specifically, but all of the weird barriers and systems and everything that you have to navigate.
no, that's so true. Like, I don't know if you uh, have seen that show Love Island. They have like a single leg amputee on it, and as soon as she was on the show, I can't tell you how many people were like, "Hey, man, she's a Paralympian. Why aren't you a Paralympian?" And I was like,
Well, why aren't you?
"No, what? Wait a minute, what?" It's yeah,
Yeah,
it's never ending shenanigans with some folks.
no,
Um,
it's true. Yeah, and like absolute aside, but like in terms of like, why aren't you Paralympian? People don't understand that all of these categories and systems and whatever also exist in that world. So I've been doing parasport for many years at this point and was not actually classifiable in order to compete until I became an amputee. So like not every disability is viewed in the same way or given the same opportunities, or even now, like my classification only takes into account that I am an amputee, and not that I have EDS and other conditions. So like I actually won't ever be able to compete at the level of other people who are my same class. So like this is it's all the way down, right? In every even in a lot of do I want to call parasport a, a disability space? Maybe not disability led, maybe not like uh it's complicated. Um but yeah, these classifications and systems and ways of viewing disability permeate so many parts of your life.
Very much so. And I want to go back a little bit when you were talking about the education, because I first got introduced to you as professor. And so, what was it like having your chronic illnesses while being a professor and having to navigate that whole area?
So I have to I feel like I would be corrected if I just said yes, Professor Parsons, that's me. So I was an instructor at a college here locally while also doing my PhD at another university. But I'm not yet a doctor. I I feel like if these are all made up titles anyway. But so not a professor, definitely an academic, and I unfortunately I don't actually really see a path for myself into academia due to disabilities, like into when I say into academia, like into like a tenure track professorial position, etc. And at this point, I'm not even sure that I would want that. Um, I of all, I mean, I navigate ableism every day in so many different spaces, and it is consistently uh, the worst, the most limiting at my university. There is, um, and there's been so much scholarship on this about how academia is built on ableism. It's built on being, um, intellectually and physically, because a lot of the hazing rituals, a lot of the hoops you have to jump through in your career, really uh, do demand uh, incredible physical stamina that's not recognized. My university for a while had the motto a place of mind, as if we all just leave our bodies at the door, right, and are thinking big thoughts, whatever. Um, and so yeah, I think in academia in general there is a confusion of uh, I think they try to achieve. I think they confuse excellence with exclusivity, and they try to achieve exclusivity through exclusion. Um, and that means that it is. This is one of those things I try to explain this to people in the academy all the time, that I'm not, it's not like I want special treatment. It's that everybody who is non-disabled is getting special treatment, right? Like their needs are built into how this whole thing works, right? It's not that I am like, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do whatever. It's that the whole system is built around privileging a certain way of doing things, and that is not just folks who are non-disabled, but it is very much. So I worked on a little research project within the university, looking at how faculty, um, how disabled faculty do their jobs, what they need, et cetera. And the only disabled faculty who were like, this is great, this is working really well for me, were all uh, straight, cis, white men with wives um, who are doing the other half of that job. And everybody else was really, really struggling. And so I think that it's super telling. And unfortunately, there is not a lot of will to actually change things. I feel like there's even less will to change things these days. Folks are really kind of yeah, the attitude has really become, don't ask for too much. And so even a couple years ago, it seems like folks were dreaming bigger. I don't know what I would even say they were. It's such basic stuff, but it's now yeah, it's hard to make any headway at all at this point. So disappointing, and it's too bad because I think one thing that people don't think about, don't realize, is that well, I mean, first off, a quarter to a third of North American adults are disabled, right? So if you're not having people engaged in knowledge production with that lived experience, you are effectively leaving out a quarter to a third of people's experiences and what they can tell us about the world, how it operates. Um, and then yeah, there's not an understanding that disability is a place from which knowledge is made. And so I think that so you and I met on disability Twitter back in its heydays, and not a day goes by that I don't miss it. And I remember seeing your post and just being like, this person, this person is fantastic immediately. Um, so I'm so glad that we've stayed connected even with the demise of disability Twitter. But there's a reason why that was such an incredible space for disabled knowledge production, right? And it's a lot of those conversations cannot happen in in the academy. A lot of those folks aren't in the academy because it is such a hostile space. And so a lot of the disability related scholarship that no, a lot of the worthwhile disability related scholarship in the academy really does start outside of it. And it really is folks, the few people who get it, the few people who've made it, um, looking to work of activists and thinkers outside the academy around disability and bringing that in those conversations have the potential to change everything and don't really, unfortunately, we don't really get that chance, which is too bad. I think the best that a lot of folks hope for is I think what a lot of folks end up having to do is writing to the academy, right? Like writing about the experience of being a disabled person in the academy, because that's how you end up spending all of your time, right? You don't get a chance to do the other research. You don't. And this was even proposed to me that it was like, well, you're spending all of your time on disability organizing like at the university, maybe you should just change your dissertation topic to that. And I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, as the one thing that this university is not going to take from me, I'm going to continue doing the research that I was doing, which now, of course, uh, does include a lot of disability stuff. But because it is valuable and powerful, and not just because I've been forced to do that and then feel like I have to instrumentalize it in some way in order to get my degree and move on with my life. So I don't have good things to say about it. Unfortunately, it's been a terrible experience.
Yeah, no, and that's one of like the sort of like the sad things about doing all this and like pushing great ideas, because I agree with you. A few years ago it seemed like, oh, are we on the right path? Are we working? And I think COVID helped us to at least start to have the hard conversations. But then we realized that some people were like, "Ooh, this is too hard. Never mind. Never mind. I'm not
Yeah,
into this disability. What?" And
yeah,
now we've completely thrown a lot of folks under the bus when it comes to like disability anything, or like accessibility, or even like speaking about COVID or long COVID in a way that is going to support people and help people. And so I appreciate you bringing that up. And I also, oh, I miss Twitter all the time. And
every day.
he who shall not be named just ruined it for everybody, and especially for marginalized folks.
Yes.
Um,
Yep.
and I miss it. I miss it all the time. And I'm like,
Miss it
but
so
no,
much. Yeah.
can't,
And it's
I
so
can't do it.
frustrating because those conversations, just incredible people, and some of whom, like Alice Wong, are no longer with us, right? Really incredible people, like leading, curating, sort of nurturing those conversations on that platform. And it's in some ways, I mean, I know those conversations are still happening, right? But they're not happening in full view of everyone else right now. And I'm just watching the same topics get rehashed particularly like on TikTok, just in a much more regressive and harmful way. And it's like, no, we did that already. We fixed that already. Like build on that. Like and just yeah, seeing how quickly we've backslid on so many things and just how many really incredible yeah insights from really incredible disabled people are I hope they haven't been lost, right? This is that whole thing with Mia Mingus and leaving evidence, right? But if you don't know where to look nowadays, it's really hard to find. Once upon a time, it was like, oh, go spend some time on disability Twitter, and you'll learn a few things. And these days, it's um, yeah, it's challenging. It's really a pity.
Yeah, I know it is, and I often think back to all the opportunities and gigs that I got just by being myself on Twitter. That has now shifted, and it's a little different now. But I'm like, dang, why y'all? Why did it have to be this way? But it also reminds me
Totally.
of I did this training for this organization a couple years ago that swore up and down that they didn't have anyone with a disability working there. And then when I went and did the training, come to find out there were several people there with invisible disabilities who did not feel comfortable enough to disclose because of the existing shenanigans going on at that organization. And I think that goes back to what you were talking about at whether it's dealing with other educators or schools or even like folks out in the community that like we're both seen and not seen, and it's such a weird thing to experience that like I go there all the time. Like I know that my walker is 18 inches, I know my
Mhm.
wheelchair is 22 inches, so I know I need to get through certain kinds of doorways or certain kind of walkways, and so I know when I'm taking up space and I know when I'm not. But anytime I'm in a, granted it's midtown Manhattan, so there's lots of people all the time, but they always treat me like I'm in the way. Even if I have parked myself in the corner, clearly out of the way, and it's almost as if they're trying to both interact with me, but also not, which is such
Yes,
a weird, I don't even know how to describe that.
it is. It is so on. So I have a story about that that is very brief, but it's I was at a climate protest a number of years ago, and some woman stopped to tell me that I was in the way in my wheelchair, and I was like, "Yes, this is a protest. That's what we're doing here. Like that's the point of the exercise, my friend." Um, and it is. It's such a yeah, and just that extra step for people to understand that they if we're in the way, it's because our presence has not been anticipated, right? And there's not been space made for us, like physically. Um, but also, like, if they could just understand, they're just not used to seeing disabled people take up any space, right? And so, uh, yeah, it is odd to be the elephant in the room at all times, but also it's weird. It's
It is very weird. And I'm always like, what do you want from me? And sometimes it just feels like they just don't want me to be in the room or
I
in the
think that's it.
space,
Hmm.
which is a wild thing for me to even experience, especially. And I hate to say it, y'all, but I've said it before. Some of these left leaning spaces are basura straight up. And I I'm not a fan of a lot of the right wing conservative people, but at least I know where they stand. They're very honest that they would not piss on me if I were on fire. But you left leaning folks, you act like you will, and then oftentimes you don't. And then you sometimes try to make me feel bad or wrong for taking up space, even if you're working in a space for equity and inclusion, which I think is some like weird mental gymnastics thing that they're doing. But it's also like, what do you I don't even know. So what's been your experience trying to like navigate some of these spaces? Having people
Oh
say we
yeah.
want you there, but not
Yep.
treating you like they want you there.
Yes. Yeah. There are a couple of things to say about it. The first is the first things that you were saying really um nothing like being disabled, like visibly not visibly the thing is like so many disabilities are perceptible if you know what you're looking for, right? But so it's that's such a weird when we talk about like visibly disabled people or like invisible disabilities. Um, a, a lot of us in the community, you know, folks aren't folks who are invisible aren't. It's just that a lot of folks don't know what they're looking at or looking for. Um, but anyway, being perceptibly disabled to folks who are not or who are non-disabled or who do not know that they are disabled, because that's the whole thing, is that people are terrified of awkwardness. Like that is, they are they are less afraid of doing harm, and uh, yeah, they're less afraid of doing harm than they are of having an awkward interaction or feeling awkward. So just like no ability to tolerate that, which is a funny thing in some ways. Like when doing advocacy work as a disabled person, right? The ability to tolerate awkwardness, to sit in that awkwardness when other people can't, does become like this is another one of those things that people talk about, like certain superpowers that come with being disabled. And usually it's not the things that they think are superpowered, but I think that that ability to tolerate awkwardness really is a superpower that you develop as a disabled person. Um, and so yeah, just the watching the ways that people try to get around anything that feels awkward is sometimes incredibly awkward. But um, and in terms of like left-leaning spaces, so someone recently said about me to another person um, that I don't seem to be very political, which I think is fascinating because every part of my life feels
Like, exactly. Have they met you? Like, were they even like what?
yeah, yeah. And I think this person, like knowing this person, if they had a moment to kind of uh, reflect on that, I think they would I think they would think about it a little bit differently. But it's like, yeah, no, it's because I can't, there is no political space that feels like, apart from politicized disability spaces, right? Like there really aren't a lot of spaces that feel like any sort of political base, right? Any home base. And yeah, even in a lot of left-leaning spaces who haven't really like where people haven't really interrogated their relationship, for instance, to labor, um, which if we talk about communism, socialism, like these various leftist ways of organizing politics that don't have a crip or disabled um, sensibility to them. So it's like labor, yes, but also like people who cannot labor, or to have a wider understanding of what labor is. Or so for me, I look for how care operates in political spaces, right? What are your care politics and practices? And that's going to tell me what I need to know about yeah, whether that organizing is for, about, by, otherwise embraces disabled folks, or if it's just another way of excluding us. And unfortunately, that history on the left is just as deep and violent as it is on the right. You know, the progressive era, the history of eugenics, like that's all still alive and well in leftist politics a lot of the time. And it is very frustrating to bring that up and then, be called like an op, It's like, just do better. It's- I promise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely do better. I have had people really get angry at me in New York, holding them accountable to it. And there have even been some organizations that, like, I'd go to an event and they'd have like a sign-on letter going around, and they wouldn't mention anything about disability equity in it. And I'd be like, sorry, I'm not signing this. And people have gotten really upset. And I'm just like, be mad, be super mad. I have a cape for you. Also, if this is not an inclusive space, then no, me and my disabled body will not be here. So why are you mad at, don't be mad at me. Actually be mad at yourselves for not thinking about this in an intentional, holistic way.
So I have a question for you about that. Because and it's something I feel like there's that meme, right? Like pick your battles, too many battles puts them back right now. Like the question about like there are those spaces that are not that disabled people, our bodies, our minds, our needs, etc., have not been thought of beforehand. Um, and and maybe this is just the perpetual question, but like figuring out the spaces that you walk away from and the spaces that you stay in and insist that there is a place for yourself and other disabled people. And I have not figured out how to not
Gosh,
figured that out yet.
that would that's a long, that's a difficult question to answer, but I also feel like the answer would be very wide ranging and just a lot more than just the, oh yeah, I went here and I didn't go there, because there's been spaces where I didn't get any kind of support that then I later did get support in. So I was like, okay, I'm willing to come back. You guys are actually interested in it. But then there's some other spaces that I was just like, this is not actually worth my time. And I think that y'all just want me as a quote, like diversity edition, so that you don't look like you only have, you know, white men around or non-disabled people around or or affluent people. Like it's like I'm just that one addition that they want in there, so that they look less, you know, racist or sexist or ableist. And I refuse to be used like that, because years ago I was used like that. Didn't know that I was being used like that, and I'm just like, nope, nope, nope. So it's such a difficult place to be in, where you're like, oh, I want to be part of this. I want to do these things with you guys. Y'all don't make it easy, and I want to. How do I navigate? And so these days, I've just kind of been like, you know what? Never mind. Which is an awful place to be with a lot of these things.
Mm,
And that's been a lot. I mean, 28 years in the organizing land in New York, and seeing that there people are the changes that have happened have been like an eyedropper in an ocean. And it's like, you guys, I'm not into that kind of very molasses slow change. Like we can do these things. And if we're willing to do that for certain areas or certain communities, then we should be able to do that for everyone. And it seems like they just don't, there's not there's not that I don't care, but it doesn't seem as important or vital to them. Like I had an
absolutely.
organizer a few years ago who was like, I brought some other disabled folks who were training with me, and they were telling these disabled people who I was trying to get involved with the organization that, oh, if someone's too disabled to do something, we're not going to make it accessible. Just don't come. Just don't come. Oh, well, I'm going to take me and the five other disabled folks out of this event because you said don't come. And then they got upset with me that I was pushing back. And then they didn't want to talk to me anymore. And now they're cool with me because I show up with a crowd when I go to things. But it's like, okay, either you want me involved or you don't. Either you want disabled folks involved or you don't. And if you don't, just be upfront about it. And I won't
Yes.
waste my time, and I won't waste the time of the community members who come when I ask them to come. Like, I'm not going to waste our time, because you're showing me that you don't understand allyship, not even a little bit. And that makes me worried for the kind of organizing work that you're doing. Because if you're so willing to exclude a whole community because you think accessibility is, quote, too hard, then I'm not interested in even having that kind of conversation with you. And it goes back to, like, what do you spend your energy pursuing with this? Where do you see that you should push, or where shouldn't you push? And it's like, with a lot of these folks, I've been pushing for decades, and they're just not interested. And so at this point, at my ripe young age of 42, I'm like, you know what, not worth my time. I'm gonna go bark up some other trees seem worth it. So I know that's such a weird way to respond, but it's like, what do I do, yo?
Totally. Yes. Yeah. Oh, you said some things that are just so important, right? Like, and this was disability Twitter wisdom that I have no idea who said this, but that it's always the cost of like a disabled person's presence that's accounted for, right? Like, oh, that's well, we would have to do this and that, and like there's time, energy, financial costs associated with that, and no one is ever paying attention to the cost of not having us there, right? Like, what do you lose, right? Um, and yeah, and then the time piece that is one of the I mean, Crypt time is like a whole there's so much there about the way that time is different for disabled folks than it is for non-disabled folks. But one of those is absolutely that people think you have all the time in the world or that your time isn't valuable, not even just in a like monetary sense, but like you don't have other things to do with your time, right? That they can take all the time that they need, but if you need more time, then that's too much, right? And it's yeah, the way that time is used in particular to exclude us is I think it's one of the biggest ways that uh, we are intentionally or unintentionally excluded um, from spaces for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that that is so real, and it's just like how many more different ways, like in the year of our Lord of 2026, like how many different ways and times and trainings and books and shows and thing and like it's like what are we? And I don't think we're doing anything wrong. I just don't know what other as an organizer, I'm always thinking of okay, you have to have a clear ask, think of different tactics, think of different solutions. Maybe there's this, maybe there's that, and it's like at this point, I'm kind of at a loss, and it's like, okay, either you accept me or you don't, whatever.
Yeah.
But like,
Yep.
it's like I want to have it. I want to be a bit more intentional with my thought process on it because I'm like, no, but it can't just because what about the younger folks with disabilities? What about the people who are just entering these spaces? What about folks who can potentially be allies and just have never had the knowledge or the education or the know-how? So I'm like, okay, I'll keep on trucking along, but like at what cost am I continuing to keep pushing and keep pushing, especially when oftentimes the answer is no and we're not doing this and like that's not we
Yep.
don't have any of those here and I'm like
Yep.
so it's like so how do you think we should navigate this space of like trying to be more inclusive?
And I'm right there with you. I
I
think
know that's a big question, but yeah.
it's such a big question. Like you're talking about the training, and it's that like yes, that and that question of like, okay, who is this for, and what are you gonna do with it, right? Is this a training just to have a training? Is this a like what are we yeah, what are we doing here? Is any of this going to get implemented? I like in a lot of my organizing at the university for a long time I was told and believed, right? Like, oh, well, we've never run into this before, you know, um, which I now know in most cases to be patently false. And it's just that they keep running into it because nothing changes, right? So this, like, uh, I guess I think one of the things that distinguishes a space where things can happen versus those where things are not going to happen is if people really like does center around access needs and accommodations and things like that, like when you run into an issue, a barrier, etc., is that like do you treat it as proof that like this isn't gonna work, that these people shouldn't be here, etc., or is that like do you treat that as a change that you need to make? And specifically I feel like around accommodations, right? When accessibility stops at accommodations and it's like, well, we've created this system, but we do have some workarounds, right? We do have some retrofits, and it's like that's actually not where we end, right? Like if we need that accommodation, it means we need to then change the way that it works, right? That should prompt you to think about who is who you're excluding, like whose participation is made more difficult. And so when those lessons are, because a lot of times it's, we've never seen this before, we'll do better next time. and they don't. And it's like, if they actually do, right? If the next time they're like, we learned this thing, we're going to implement that, because like more disability Twitter wisdom, right? Like accessibility as a process that we never really know, even in disabled spaces, right? Um, Everybody's needs. We haven't always accounted for everything. It's kind of impossible to account for everything. You know, needs are as diverse as body minds, and that's but like, is there an openness to that? Is there a flexibility around that? Is there a responsiveness to that? And so again, yeah, it comes back to kind of what are the care politics um, of that space, and do people prioritize that? Just the other piece, right? Like, is this a priority? You know, you hear all the time, we don't have the resources for that. Or we don't have anyone who can do that right now. We don't have the time for that. And it's like, just tell me it's not a priority. Just be on, respect my time, respect my energy, say this is not a priority. And then we can go our separate ways, right? I can spend my time and energy elsewhere. And it's, yeah, it stinks to, and I think a lot of people think they're doing as well as they want to do, right? There is this group of people who really want to do well, and they feel like that means that they are doing well. And um, yeah, how much you feel about it isn't really that's not necessarily what you're doing about it, right? So yeah, I don't know. It's so complicated.
No, it is so complicated, and I think that like especially with this, like it's one of those, especially because folks are not always as honest as we'd like them to be, especially with like including marginalized folks in things where they're not usually doing that. And I've encountered so many people, especially in New York City government. I know they're gonna hate me for saying it, but like y'all talk about it, but you're not really about it. And I said this one thing in a meeting a few weeks ago, and I'm like, I love that the city's talking about getting disabled folks more jobs, but like, how are we supposed to get there? Am I supposed to teleport? Like, yes, I am a magical individual, but I am not actually magical, and so therefore, I need a regular way to get around, like transportation. And it was like, oh, you guys, like it was, oh, haha, that's funny, but it's also like, no, it's actually real, and we can't keep talking about how we want to support folks, but not really. Like, how are we supposed to get people where they need to go? But further than that, we're getting people jobs. Like, have the offices actually been trained on disability equity? And what did that training even look like? And did it even include the disability of the person that they're hiring? And are they going to actually make it past several months? Or is it going to be that they're there for a little while and then they get canned for whatever reason because we didn't give them the support that they needed? And so I feel like that's very much what you were talking about. Is like, you act like you want to support, but then the support is so lacking. And it's like, what do you even do with that?
So it's like it's like, oh, it's accessible, but there's just one small step, right? Like, and it's like, okay, so it's not, right? Like, it's great if you can get in the door, but if you can't get there, right? Or if you get in the door but you can't go to the bathroom, or if you can get the job but there's no, you can't take time to respond to your body's needs and work for whatever, right? Like all of these ways that uh yeah, it's just that one small, that's not how it works. There is no like 60% accessible. It has to be an orientation that runs through everything that you do. And I think people hear that and kind of like give up. And it's like, that's too much. And it's like, it's not though. It's just remembering that disabled people exist, planning for our presence and participation, and then being responsive to it, right? Like when we're saying, oh, this doesn't work. All right, what do we do about that? And the thing is, like, they never ask us, right? They're always like, oh, well, it would be so much for us to do this, and this, and we would have to completely, it's like we move through an inaccessible world all day, every day. We actually, we're the people to ask about how do I, and like, it's a metaphorical one step, because I don't want us to, like, I don't want to get into the thing of just being like, I don't know, mobility related disabilities are like the disability, and wheelchair users are the mobility related disability, like baseline. So it's a metaphorical step, right? But it's just that thing that you cannot, uh, just that little barrier, whether you can or can't get over it. Like if it requires extra energy, if it does create these situations of awkwardness that other people make somehow your fault, right? Like um, we know what to do often in the most cost effective way, right? Like disabled people rarely like rolling in it financially, right? So just ask us, and they don't. They're so afraid to lose that that control over our bodies. I run into this with the university all the time because I'm deep into extensions in my PhD at this point, and so every semester I have to submit sort of a report on, what I've done, what I'm doing next, how long it's going to take. And I think it's a little weird, but it would be fine if that led to any sort of supports, right? Like every single report I've been like, and these are the barriers to me finishing this quickly and like moving on with my life. But it's not, it's surveillance without any sort of supports, and that often is the way that it's treated. Um, so yeah, it's we're not doing well. Like,
No, not even a little bit. And like I was spending a lot of I was doing some classes at a CUNY school. I ain't gonna shout y'all out, but y'all were cool. And consistently the Office for Students with Disabilities would reach out to me to ask if I needed supports. And I'd be like, yes, I do need supports. I need help with this freaking steep ass ramp with no banister that I have to go up and down to get into the school. I need help with y'all not shutting down accessible bathrooms near any of the classrooms I'm going to and having to walk miles to get to another bathroom. I need help with y'all making sure that it's a safe environment and not have mold falling out of the bathrooms that are under construction for months at a time. And when I wrote them about that, they responded with the most generic standard response saying, oh, we'll give you more time on your tests. We'll give you more time for your assignments. We'll give you, we'll let the professors know that if you need to, be out of class, every once in a while. And I was like, well, okay, fine. But also, that's not what I need. And that's not what I asked you for. And they never responded to what I actually needed. And so I just had to struggle to get around campus constantly. And it was like, and then they had the audacity to keep on reaching out to me. And finally, I was like, please don't call me ever again. I want to be removed from this list. Y'all never supported me with a goddamn thing. Leave me alone. And I even filled out a survey and let them know everything. And so it's like, yeah, even the people who are in these spaces are lacking so much to support people to just basically do anything that has to do with anyone outside of your house or outside of the space where you're, you know, and even in some of those spaces with your friends and your family, they might not even be great all the time with your access needs. So it's just like, what are y'all really? Are you just doing this to get funding? And you're not actually going to support people in this process? Or do you think that you doing this is enough? And you see me, you see I'm spunky, I got it, I'm good. No, I'm not good. No, I don't got it. I could have easily fallen on that ramp and hurt myself. I could have, accidentally peed on myself walking to one of these bathrooms being so far away. I could have inhaled the mold. And like, so there are multiple things, and it's just like, you guys, and it's almost as if they wanted to say, well, we're just going to do the absolute bare minimum, and that's good enough for us, and no one's complaining about it. So, or quote, no one's complaining about it, and we're just going to keep it moving. And oh, it's just you, and you're the only one that has that complaint. And it's like, no, I'm not. I've talked to other people about it. I've seen your ranking in school, so I know that you guys are actually not great. And also, like, I'm a person, I'm spending money here. I'm spending money here. So why don't I get the common courtesy and the decency to be a paying customer who's doing a thing with whatever the thing is? It doesn't have to just be for school. It could be for anything that you're paying for it. And because I have a disability, I'm treated as less than, even though I'm paying for the same thing that these other people are paying for. and I'm not given the same kind of courtesy. And it's time and time again all over the place with this stuff.
It's so I have so much to say about offices of accessibility, well, the various names for it. Because yes, that and like that seems to be such a universal experience. And it's let's see, Margaret Price has written about this. Other folks have written about this. Timothy J. Dolmage has written about this. But basically, that those offices work for the university in order to manage liability. That's really what it is. We are liabilities, and they're managing us. And the two accessibility advisors that I've had at my university both have law backgrounds, which says a lot. And it is all about it. This phrase, it's another disability Twitter, right? That treating it as a ceiling rather than a floor, right? It's kind of what is the minimum that we can do in order to avoid legal action. And it's not, it's not what do you need to thrive as a student. Certainly, it's not even like what do you need to have like similar uh, to have like comparable learning conditions to non-disabled students, right? It's literally what do you need to get to class to pass class, maybe sometimes, yeah. Um, and so having to interact with the Center for Accessibility at my school, and also learning that this is not at all the I do think UBC is worse than many other institutions on accessibility, but they are not. Uh, there, I don't think there are many places doing it well, I should say, and it's really driven home for me that universities, that for disabled students and no doubt for other marginalized students, universities are not institutions of social mobility. They are socially stratifying institutions. They're they're weeding out people and ensuring that they do not have access to opportunities. It is not about opening access, and that is such a loss. It really is such a disappointment and a betrayal of like everything that uh, spaces of learning can and should be. I
I feel you so hard on that because I love learning, and y'all don't take it wrong like that. I'm like, oh, don't get an education. No, get yourself an education. Get yourself as many pieces of paper that you need to get to to like learn about things. I love reading. I read all the time. Like that's not the point. What the point is that if you're gonna set up society in a way that you're like, okay, you need to finish your primary school and then go on to secondary school and get all get your education and go learn things and do things, and then you're going to make it. And I guess it goes back to the OGs in the US making it so only certain people got an education and only certain people had access to it. And then if you want certain people to have access, you try to gotta take away the other access from people. And it's like, okay, I get it. And also, like, if I, weren't we trying to like improve it? Weren't we trying to like make it so that education wasn't something so difficult and so hard and so like elitist? But sometimes it feels like no, it's very much still that way, and it's very much like we want to have a hierarchy with who gets an education and who doesn't, and what kind of education, and like is it easy, is it simple, and is it like it just it's like we're setting ourselves up to fail consistently. And it's like you know we want people to be around and be okay, but not really. And we want people to get an education, but not like that. And we want people to like be healthy, but no, not too much. It's just like I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it just feels so dumpster fiery, and it's like why are we like this? And it's all the wild thing. I brought this up with so many people in so many different spaces. A lot of this is a choice, and so it's like, why is this the choice that we're making? If we're trying to make the world a better place, if we want people to be educated and do all the things and like, have whatever, I think the American dream's kind of dead, but like having the dreams across the world of like being a full person and doing the things that a full person does and like all the things or not, like Why would we set people up to fail consistently? Is it because some of us y'all think that we're not worthy of it? Is it because some of us are, not up to your, eugenic standard of being or functioning? And to me that very well must be what it is, but it also seems like there's more to it than that.
And it's so frustrating because I have taught, right? Like I have been uh, on the other side of some of these conversations, and it's not hard. It's actually not that hard to make your course accessible. I the the metric for me, and when I knew that I was doing a good job, was when a student reached out to me and said, I was going to send you my accommodations letter, but I read the syllabus and I realized I actually won't need accommodations in your course. Like that's it. That's the thing, right? And so then I got to be like, all right, well, is there anything that would make my coursework better for you, right? And the student had some ideas, and I incorporated them because it's going to be helpful for the next student with those needs. But it is actually not that hard to. It requires you to treat young people largely as people. It requires you to treat disabled people as people. It requires you to acknowledge um, that many of those same barriers actually are impacting other students who are not disabled. I taught at a low barrier institution up here, and so many of my students were older, had care responsibilities, were new to the country, English was not their first language, etc. Had to work, um, sometimes working really long hours or really tough jobs. And all of the things that I was doing for disabled students were also helping them. And so um, I had a really, I mean, I got really lucky with the high school I went to. It was a public alternative school, and it just all of the teachers there were working to do education differently, and it really impacted how I think about, well, the world, but also education. And one of my absolute favorite teachers would say, high school students are as respectful and responsible as you are towards them. And that's just something that I've carried into my teaching. And so it's, been, I trust you guys, don't betray that trust, but I'm not going to monitor people. I'm going to, um, if you tell me you need more time with something, that's fine. Deadlines exist to help manage my workload and your workload. If you can't make it, let me know. You don't need to tell me why. Tell me when I can expect it. You know, here's the end date that I can't do anything. After that point, it's the college, right? But like we can work things out, and a lot of faculty hear that and like, oh, that's so much work. That's like, what's so much work? Is like monitoring all of your students and collecting all of those letters and like having all of these assignments that have to come in by this date. And then like it is so much easier to just move with the students, right? With their lives, respond to them. And it comes down to like, as an instructor, my job was to facilitate geographical learning, taught geography, like whatever I could do. It was like, am I facilitating geographical learning? Right. And if I am making it harder for students to get that work done, I'm not doing that. If they're spending all of their time, you know, getting notes to justify their absence, or if they can't make it to class and I'm like, well, I guess you just won't learn what happened on that day. No, the lectures are going to be recorded. They're going to be posted. If a student can't make it to class, that's their business. I want them to see that lecture when they have a chance to see it. If they have to skip a week, they have to skip a week. I might not be the person who teaches them that thing, right? But at least I'm not going to be the person who traumatizes them into not learning it ever, you know? Especially at a low barrier institution. I had so many students who were so traumatized by previous educational experiences and would come in and say, I'm not a very good student. I really struggle with this or that. And as soon as I removed some of those barriers, incredible incredible work, really cool stuff. And students had something to say, and they were able to do really neat things with the tools and information that I was able to give them. And I think that something that I hear over and over again from faculty is, well, we're preparing students for the real world. You know, in the real world, this wouldn't happen or that wouldn't happen. Like at a job, if you try to do whatever with a boss, and it's like, well, that's not what we're doing here. We're preparing students to make a better world. That's a different thing, right? Like the real world is it could be different. And I think that there's not appreciation for that, unfortunately. And I really wish there was. It's one of so many spaces where things could be good, and I never understand why people don't want them to be good. you know?
No, I feel like that goes back to the choice thing again. It's like we
Yes.
know the world is dumpster fiery. Why are we then adding additional dumpster fiery things onto these people who are trying to learn something? Why don't we show them, hey, this can actually be different? Here's an example of something different. I'm going to teach it to you, and I want you to hopefully share what you've learned here in the world so that we can reverberate and send those ripples of change out there, not just keep on doing trauma responses and bleeding our trauma onto people and then educating them and sending them out traumatized as hell. Like, why are we doing that?
So, and that is such a, like, it's so patronizing too to have, faculty and administrators be like, we're preparing them for the real world. And they're often talking to and about students who have a much better understanding of the real world than they do, right? The students who are struggling because they are marginalized in these different ways, right? And they've got some, you know, older cis het white dude who got his got tenure back when that was still a thing, has only ever had this one job for his entire life, being like, I'm preparing you for the real world. It's like, who are you talking to? What world are you
Exactly.
talking about? And like
Exactly.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
Who are you talking to? And what
Yep.
world are you talking about? Because that's clearly not the world that your students are in and that they're going to then go forth in and live in and do things in. That's wow. That's I'm sorry you have to deal with that. That is so wild.
I'm sorry that you're also familiar with that.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, y'all. And then the wild thing is like when you're trying to show them something different, they're
Mm,
so anti whatever the difference is, as if, and they can see it as if what they've been doing has been working, but it hasn't been. And they can see that it hasn't been, but I think they're so stuck in their trauma response that they don't see a way out of it. And so they're like, I'm just going to do business as usual.
this is one reason why I've stepped away from sort of disability advocacy for the moment, because the I mean, we're all doing advocacy kind of wherever we are, right? And which is, I think, the way to really do it most responsibly and effectively. And for me, where I am is at the university, and it became clear to me that I was being asked to do busy work, right? Like I've done so much work for the university, paid by the university around accessibility, and nothing happened. And it's like I've slowed down my degree in order to help make it better for the next person who encounters these things. And it isn't, right? It isn't. And it's been a waste of my time and energy, and um yeah, the will to make those changes just really isn't there. And it's so frustrating because it's the other thing that happens, is universities, general UBC in particular, um, they have hired people into particular positions to apologize for the university. Um, and so after this happened a couple of times, I was like, I don't like this dynamic, that the head of the equity and inclusion office, for instance, is a woman of color, and it is her job to apologize to people. And that is like, because and she is brilliant, accomplished, like the politics are good. Like but talking to her about, well, could we do this, could we do that, and then having her go to her her peers, people at the same level of the university of her as her, and having them be able to say no, and then having her have to come back and apologize for the university's actions. Like it's it's bad. It's all bad. It's what it comes down to. And yeah, bit disillusioned. I don't know that anywhere is good right now, but maybe some places it is possible to make more good than others.
Yeah, no. Oof. Yikes. Well, we went on a whole ass rant about this, but it's
We
important,
sure
y'all. So we're gonna shift because yeah, I mean, we could talk about this all day and all night and for weeks and months on end because there's so much endless there's just endless ableism on multiple levels and layers, especially depending on what your disability is, how you function in the world, how people perceive you, and like all that. Yeah, it's a whole just yeah. Um, so shifting, what do you do to hold on to your disabled joy?
Spend time with other disabled people. I love this community. First off, disabled people are the funniest people in the entire world. And I mean, I think there's so many reasons for that, but one of them is that we do navigate that awkwardness constantly, which means that oftentimes our survival is linked to our ability to make other people comfortable. And one of the ways to do that is humor, but also it's comedy gold, right? Because the comedy rests on that like the tension and release, right? And so when you're constantly walking into these situations where people are like you can't help it. You have to you have to pop that balloon. And um I I love disabled people. I think we're wonderful, hilarious, ingenious, and not for any of the reasons that folks who are not part of that community think. But so yeah, I spend a lot of time with other disabled folks. It's interesting. Yeah, that I've had a couple now, like going back to the conversation about the different ways that people come into disability, right? And the first time that my health really tanked, and I kind of, that like the gif of like Homer Simpson in the bushes, sort of retreating into the bushes. Like that was kind of me. I didn't know what was going on with my health. I just knew I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. I wasn't getting any answers, and I just kind of slowly uh, disappeared from my life, my social world, my work, and nobody came looking. And there's that does something to you, right? That like that feeling of like I could literally disappear from the world and no one would notice. Um, and The second time with amputation, I had an opportunity to be really intentional about doing that differently. And so I threw a party, I threw a farewell to legs party, and it just kind of to bring folks along, right? To say I want you to be part of this transition in my life, to be part of this change in my life, and it's not something I knew to do previously, right? Like, so be kind to younger Corin, but like I it was such a different experience to involve folks that way and to find out that folks really did want to be involved. But part of that also is my social world was very different. There are different people in my life now, and that makes a huge difference. So it's been a um, yeah, I guess like finding out who is going to actually be there. And a lot of times it is other disabled people. Um, and which is a beautiful thing, but also a really frustrating thing because we are tired. We are like low on resources, right? And we're constantly showing up for each other because other people aren't. And so, but well, it changed my brain chemistry, that experience. People really did uh, show up and we're so wonderfully supportive. And I'm still um, that is something that is still bringing me joy. And yeah, it's changed a lot about uh, how I think about the world and the people in it. Uh,
Yeah, no, that really like when you're struggling or when there's something going on and then like nobody reaches out to you, nobody like says anything. No one. It doesn't even seem like anyone's missing you. That I've experienced that a number of times, and I'm like, ooh, that stings. And also having a community around that's actually there and supportive to you makes a huge, huge, huge difference. I'm so glad and grateful you found that.
Me too. Yeah, it's been really incredible, and it's so funny because all of my friends over the past year have been like, "You have great friends," right? I'm like, "You're all talking about each other, right? Like, you are the great people." And like that should also be ordinary, right? We should all show up for each other in that way. But I do feel really really lucky to have the people in my life I have in my life, and they've requested a reunion. So there will be another another party this summer. It's like this time everyone gets to keep whatever limbs they have. I guess I don't know.
I love that. That's listen. I when I first became an amputee, I was celebrating my ampuversaries by myself.
Oh
So
yeah,
I'm so glad that because I saw all the posts online and I was like, that is the best idea. Why didn't I think of that? Oh my god, going away lake party. Like, oh my god, this is so brilliant. So I love that y'all are doing it again.
I
It's
love
like,
that people were there for it. You know that they're like, this is weird. Let's do it, right? Like,
yeah, listen, the people that you can be your most natural, normal, weird self with, and
yeah,
y'all, just so you know, there's good weird, and there's bad weird, and there's weird weird, and it's weird weird coming up to random disabled folks to ask them deeply personal questions. But it's good weird to have parties about having your legs removed with a wonderful community of people who are building community with you around something that some people might look at as a bad thing, but you're looking at it as an amazing improvement to your quality of life thing. And I think that is something that's so wild to me that folks think that getting your legs removed are going to take something away from you when in fact it's adding more benefit to you. So I think that's
yeah.
great.
It is one of those things. Like I, because of when my surgery happened and lots of other things that are happening in the world, I've thought about not just other ways that people lose limbs, but also specifically the situation in Palestine and like how many folks, how many kiddos, right, are becoming amputees under very different conditions. And man, like to to have entered into this experience in such a safe and supported way, and to be able to um, really, I mean, celebrate for me personally that it is a better quality of life, but also just to be able to mark a transition in the way that I am in the world in a safe and supported environment. Um, I don't even want to say that it's, uh, that I'm lucky or that it's a blessing or whatever, because it should be that way, and it really drives home the importance of attending to the conditions under which people experience disability, right? So for me, this can be a thing that I celebrate, and for other folks, it is um, an experience of violence and harm and a manifestation of uh, deep injustice. And so, I mean, it's like everyone's experience is different, but like, man, really, really different. And so, yeah, like I don't want to. It's a tension with a lot of disability stuff and like celebrating disabled identity and all of that. To also just make sure that we really recognize that that's not um, that we can't make this just a sort of a triumphal narrative of like embracing change, whatever, right? Like sometimes there's a lot more going on, and it's a lot more. And so I do often think about how the circumstances that I experienced are not the circumstances that everybody experiences, despite being embodied in quite similar ways. And the things that I may or may not have access to going forward, right, are not the same as things that folks may or may not have access to in other contexts. So yeah,
No, I thank you. I appreciate that because I think that some folks don't even go that far with thinking about our experiences, especially and I'm gonna stay with the niche of being an amputee. Like there's some folks who automatically, anytime anyone asks me how I lost my legs, they number one always go to military. They're like, "Oh, were
Yeah.
you in the military?" And I was like, "No." And I stopped. And I used to say, "No, I had this and this and this," but now I'm like, "No," and that's a complete sentence. But also like talking about some of the very traumatic ways some people have lost their limbs, especially with the stuff going on in Palestine. That's apparently been the most disabling event ever in history, and the most amputees ever in history have come out of that. And when I'm talking about it, especially in New York, there's some people like, "Oh, that's not a New York problem." Like, no, it is actually a New York problem because of the massive Palestinian community here. And also, a number of folks are coming over here for care and prosthetic limbs and additional aftercare. And it's like, how are we just completely separating the two? Like, it's and that again goes back to colonialism and racism and also eugenics, because they're like, "Oh, we'll help those disabled people but not those." And it's so, I appreciate you bringing that up because it's all incredibly nuanced, and also our experiences are similar but and different, and also how people interact with us are different. And
Mhm, mhm.
sometimes in the disabled community, like, some folks don't even want to look at that. They're like, "No, we're not gonna, we're all disabled, we're all under the same umbrella." I was like, "Well, no, not
Yeah,
really. Yeah, we all have disabilities, and also our experiences are very different." So
it can be
I
very, very different.
appreciate
Yeah.
you bringing that up.
Yeah, for sure. It seems very, very necessary. And I mean it has to be said over and over and over again that uh what's happening in Palestine is and always has been a disability issue. Um, and needs to be viewed and treated as such by the community.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, Maybe one day. Who knows? We'll see. um, but also, so going back to what's going on with you and all the
Mhm.
things. Do you have anything that's coming up this year that you're looking forward to?
Um, oh man, I gotta finish this degree. That's part of it for sure. I am, I feel like I can just keep talking about the university, but it has been such a big part of my life. Um, I am actually excited about that because I feel like very much related to my recent experiences and my past experiences. And so my my supervisor kind of blew open the whole dissertation writing process for me recently when she said that if you have something to work through, you're going to it's going to come up in your PhD. And I was like, yeah, of course, this is the time in somebody's life where like you get sick, your parents get sick, married, divorced, have kids, whatever, right? Like there are lots of things. And she's like, no, 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 no. Like if you have something to work through, you will be working through it in your dissertation, right? If there's a big question that you have, and I was like, oh no. Because the big question for me is about care, right? It is about what care is and how it is distributed in society, and um, yeah, how we're oriented towards one another, what it means to be in relation, and then what responsibilities come out of that. And it's as much as I would love to have already finished my degree, I also think that the things that have happened to me in the last several years mean that I have things to say about that that I would not have had to say previously, and that I have uh, people to be in conversation with about that who I would not have known about previously. So I am actually very, very excited to finish up that work. I think that that will feel really good not to just have it off my to-do list, but also I think that um, it will be a space in which I get to say some of the things that uh, I really want and need to say, and hopefully it will be interesting to some other folks, and hopefully they can then be in conversation with that, and maybe someday we will live in a more caring world, perhaps, hopefully, I don't know.
Gosh, that's my hope. Oof.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
So the last question is: is there anything additional that you would like to share with people about you, or anything else that you want them to know?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. How do people? Is there anything that I've left out? Is there anything that?
I mean, I'm sure there's a million zillion things I've left out. So I leave it open to folks, like whatever they want to share, anything that I didn't ask, anything that you were thinking about before we spoke that you wanted to talk about that I didn't, whatever, whatever.
Oh, I feel like it's that thing 3 hours later. I'm gonna be like, oh,
It's
just
okay.
how it always
There's
is.
gonna be a part two. There's gonna be
I,
a part two. There's always a part two, and
I'll
so
keep the
we can.
list.
Yes. So make
I,
make those lists.
I think the biggest thing is I wouldn't be here and saying these things if it weren't for the other people who've also showed up and said things and created the spaces. And I I feel like I'm constantly playing catch up and learning from people who've done more, been in it for longer, know more, just have a different experience and perspective, even again of the same disabilities. Um, and so I would say thank you to you. Like immediately, I remember seeing you on disability Twitter and being like, "Let's follow." And so thank you to you for doing what you do and for making these spaces and holding these conversations. Because again, it's the spaces in which those conversations can happen are becoming fewer and harder to find. So I so appreciate that. I so appreciate your work around this and. Um, the opportunity to learn from you in this political context, also in the context of just crypt doula ship to you know that's Stacy Park Milburn. We can thank for that concept and just my one of the things that made this a very easy transition into being an amputee was um, some of the things that you shared with me, and so I've in a very intimate embodied way. I'm incredibly grateful to you. In a political way, I'm very grateful to you. And so thank you for what you're doing. And for anybody else watching or listening who's also engaged in that work, um, it matters so much. And I am indebted to everyone who does all of that. So appreciate it.
Oh gosh, well, thank you. I'm sending you a hug from New York to Canada.
Thank you. Right
It's
back
from
at you.
a big ass hug because, like, I was following you so long on social media, and I'm like, oh my god, this person is so cool. They're so amazing. They're
Thank you.
funny. I love their videos. What is going on? And then when you liked me back, I was like, oh my god. And by the way, my husband Will loves your social media, so he's always like,
Is it
are
the
you talking?
snail? Is it the snail?
It's the snail. It's the funny videos. It's the little dancing. It's all the things. And he can't remember your name, but he's always like, "Have you talked to the Tweety Mutant? Have you talked to the Tweety Mutant?" Like, and sometimes it takes me like, you're talking about
Yep.
Corin. Okay. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, you are beloved in
Oh,
our
that's very,
house,
very
and
kind. Thank you.
yes, and I told him about our conversation about talking about becoming an amputee, and
Yeah.
and he was like, "Wow, that's so awesome." And I was like, "Listen, if someone's thinking about it and they want help and support, like, who am I to say no? I'm not going to talk to you about. No, I guess I'm gonna talk to you, and anytime you want to talk, I'm here because that's what community is about." And
That part.
you
Yep.
know, I'm never not going to say yes to that. So I
Absolutely.
feel so honored that you saw me as someone that you could talk to honestly and open about it,
Thank you.
and also I appreciate that you came on the show and that we could talk about all the shenanigans of being disabled in the world. And so I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Thank
Just
you. Me too.
it had
Oh, I do
so
have
much.
another thing to talk
Oh
about.
yes.
Yes, which is give people what they freaking need. Like whether that
Hello.
is prosthetics or like mobility aids. What I mean, that's if prosthetics aren't mobility aids. Whatever. Just give people what they freaking need. Like Canada,
Yes.
for folks who don't know and are in the States, Canada's baseline metric for whether or not they're doing a good job at almost anything, but healthcare, it's one of those things is it better than the US, which is not a great metric. Um, and when it comes to prosthetics coverage, not better than the US, doesn't even clear that bar. So I am currently fighting really hard for microprocessor knees, which is necessary if you're bilateral amputee, bilateral above knee amputee, and having a really hard time getting that covered. So if you have any audience in Canada who is in a decision-making role, freaking fix that. It's ridiculous.
You heard? Fix that. What you
Fix
doing?
it. Yes.
Wow, that and I've had like several pairs of prosthetic limbs since it's been 13 years, and like it's always an issue to
Where's the
get new
fight?
legs, and especially if you need that microprocessor knee.
Yeah.
Ooh, they do not want to give it to you. They're like, "What? You need to walk? What do you need to walk for?"
Meanwhile, the number one question that I'm asked is, "Are you getting prosthetics?" And it's like, it's a great question. Not actually up to me. It actually doesn't have anything to do with whether or not I have the capability to use that. I keep getting told I'm doing a very good job. Thank you. That, like I am apparently an ideal prosthetics candidate, but that doesn't seem to matter for actually accessing the
Oh snap!
technology.
What is? I have never heard of someone being an ideal prosthetic candidate. What? I know I'm not. So what
Well,
how
so
does it?
that's another thing, which is like it's the expectation that people are using prosthetics in order to approximate able-bodiedness is a whole thing, or that prosthetics should be your go-to, whatever. Like prosthetics are a mobility aid, and only as good as what you need to use them for. So like yeah, some people will talk about somebody not being a successful prosthetics user because they use like a cane or a walker, or because they don't use them all the time or whatever. That's nonsense. If you're using them to do the things that they allow you to do, and that's great. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Apparently, I'm learning fast, doing good. I don't know, but
Oh,
this is what
you
I'm doing.
model minority, you tisk no, like
Apparently.
that is so wild to me because
Yeah.
I've had so many issues with my legs and with like size, especially
Yes.
like we
Yeah.
should probably on the next time we chat we should do a whole talk about like fluctuating thigh size when you're an above knee amputee and how do
Yes.
you
Yeah.
deal with your prosthetic
Yeah.
limbs with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. We
It's
haven't gotten into any of that. So next time we can do a deep dive on all that stuff because I mean, it is fascinating and a lot.
It is a lot. It is both
Yeah.
fascinating and a lot, and I see why
Yeah.
people spend years learning the ins and outs of limb functionality
Yes.
in the world, and then when you lose a limb, how do you function and how do you this? Yeah, there's
Yeah.
all the things.
There's a
We'll
whole
get there,
thing.
y'all.
That'll be
Don't
another,
worry about
yeah,
it.
another conversation. The
Well, this has been
logistics.
so
Yeah,
fun.
thank
Oh my gosh,
you.
I could
Thank you
talk to
so
you for the
much.
whole rest of the day, and I have so
Likewise,
many
this
other
has been
things to do, and I'm
delightful.
like, dang
No,
it,
get out of
no.
here. Thank
So
you
thank
very
you
much for
so
making the time.
Yes, thank you for making the time and for being on.
Absolute pleasure.
And if y'all want to reach out to Corinne on for anything, the contact information will be in the show notes. Um, thank you so much for being with us today, and y'all have a good rest of your day. Bye, y'all.
Thank you so much.